Hi everybody, doing a little bit more work on the trail bike. I managed to pick up a 14-inch rim off a XR100 yesterday, along with two other wheels, which are an 18-inch. So they're off a Yamaha. Don't know what model, but probably early, looking at that front hub. And this is the 80 rim. I have to change at least one wheel bearing in it. It's a little bit seized. I'm just giving it a quick wipe down. It was a lot dirtier than it appears to be now. The only downsides to it is it's missing 3 spokes, but I was able to pick up 3 spokes off eBay for $6, free delivery. And what I did is I punched the bearings out of the back wheel on the Yamaha wheel, which happened to be the same size as these bearings, and I'm just going to do a swap over. The Yamaha wheels, don't heat the bearing up, heat the casting up, basically on both sides. Get a socket that pretty much sits on the outside of the bearing housing, or the bearing race, and just heat up both sides. Now I can tell this is getting hot because I can feel the spokes are hot. So I know that there's definitely heat going into this hub. That's supposed to expand the hub a little bit. Now I've given this a few punches already before I grabbed the camera, and that bearing's moved significantly. This is actually the bad bearing. So this is what I'm supposed to do: get the socket on there, get the hammer, try not to burn myself. Make sure that's lined up. Punch. It's supposed to be like a what do you call it? Like a spacer. Yeah, that's moving. It's supposed to be like a tubular spacer inside this hub, and that determines where the bearings sit. Because yeah, once you put the spacer in, it can only go as far as the spacer will allow the bearings to go. So they say with your drift, try and loosen that up a little bit. And I did try that. That is coming out, guys. It's a very slow, daunting process. From what I've been able to work out, this is off an 82, strangely enough, an 82 Honda XR. Now, I actually thought it would have been off a YZ. For a couple of reasons. Yeah, we're nearly out. The reason being, this didn't come with a brake drum. Not a brake drum, a brake hub. Yeah, a brake hub. And I took the one off the back wheel off the Yamaha, and it's a perfect fit. So I thought, oh, this must be a Yamaha too. This guy that I bought them off must be, you know, into Yamahas. And then I thought, it's pretty unusual for a Yamaha to only have 4 bolts holding the sprocket on. Now I know from all the Hondas that I've had, they usually have 4 bolts. I did a little bit of research on YouTube. Sorry, Google, on a Google search, and I just typed in. First I typed in YZs, thinking it was YZ, and YZ's are 8 bolt. And then I typed in XR, and obviously I had to go with the years of the chrome rims, because it's not an alloy rim, so I had to go pre-82, or pre-83 I should say, because 82, turns out 82 was the last year of the steel rim. So I looked it up and I found an exact match. And one of the other things that I found also the other day was, after 30 odd years of trying to identify that back wheel, I came across a picture of one actually by accident. When a couple of the motorcycle dealers said that 15-inch tyres only came out on the Yamaha MXs, I started looking for MX-80s. And then, you know, you go, one thing leads to another, and you type in 15-inch and you type in whatever else. So I typed it in, and this bike come up, and there was actually a YouTube clip to go with it. So I clicked on the YouTube clip and I watched it, and it turns out that there was this little side venture that Yamaha had back in 1973 to I think 1975, and they were making this really cheap, or a company was making really cheap bikes but using some Yamaha parts. They sought permission from Yamaha to use certain parts, and they obviously, the company making these bikes would make certain parts themselves, and they called it a Kami, K-A-M-I. Now, they weren't very successful because they were only around for 2 years, but it turns out that I have the back wheel of an Kami MX-80. They also made one called a KA-80 and a KA-100. So no wonder I couldn't find brake shoes, and I cut, you know, well, these days I was having trouble trying to find tyres. So anybody that's got an Yamaha MX-80 or a Kami MX-80 is now going to have trouble trying to find these 15-inch tyres, and this is why I've gone to the 14-inch rim. As I've probably mentioned in some other videos that I intended to probably do one day, but this just came up on eBay at the right time, so I decided to go for a drive up to country Victoria and go grab this thing. This was the brake hub off this Yamaha back wheel. Came off this one. And it turns out that it fits this perfect. It's exactly the same. So yeah, I've scored there. But yeah, I'll you know, I'm pretty confident that I have scored there. But I'll soon know when I start putting everything back together. If not, I just got to go out and buy second-hand one from the wreckers. So I've taken out the rim lock and just run up and down. Put some penetrine on it. I'm out of CRC at the moment. I just put some penetrine on it and ran up and down. Got that all freed up again. I've got the bearings and the tube soaking in some petrol at the moment just to clean them up. I'll leave them overnight, and hopefully all the grease and everything will be out of it. This is a bit of leftover stuff from the that's a sprocket off the small rim, off the XR100 XR80 rim. That's the sprocket off the Yamaha rim. You can actually see the other bearing in there, the second bearing. So if I do need another bearing, I've got one in there. It's still all freely moving. It's still packed with grease, so it's good. That was a seized one inside the XR80 wheel. So I got a few extra spaces and stuff, some spares. So that's about it, guys. Oh, my Atomic. Decided to go and look for a speedo drive for here. Managed to find one place in Melbourne. They're probably the only place in Australia to actually have one. Not even Atomic had one. $35, $8.50 delivery. That should be here on Monday. It's now Friday. Should be here Monday. The lady was really good that owned the store. She knows her stuff, and yeah, that'll nearly make this bike roadworthy for registration. All I need to do, if I wanted to get it road registered, is just put a light on the back and put a set of indicators on there. And I actually have, it's tucked in behind the plate here, but the wiring loom is actually in there. So there's another bike if I wanted to street register it. So I'm happy with that. I haven't done much more on the Hunter. I think the last time I took any video of the Hunter, I was actually working on these things here, or that one in particular, and that's on. I haven't had a chance to ride it since I fell off the roof of my house. What else did I get? Yesterday I picked up these things. So I got a dirt bike lift. Spotted a really nice one today, a hydraulic one for $89 at the Hunter dealer. I got this one too. So yeah, that's great. I got a motorcycle cover as well. I haven't even unrolled that yet to see what it's like. But I got the two stands, the cover, and this folding ramp for my trailer for $60. I picked up the 3 rims for $30, and they were all in the same country town, and they were only about a street away from each other. So I don't know what I'm going to do with these, to be honest. They're not, I don't think they're good enough to sell, but then again, I bought them, so you know, who knows. I'll just you know, I'll see what I can salvage off them. But yeah, there's a few maybe brake parts off here that I can steal. Maybe I'll keep the whole hub, I don't know why, but you know, cam arms are always good. Who knows, keep the cam. A couple of little springs here, springs are always good to keep. So yeah, I might be able to just pick a few bits and pieces off it. I did order the 3 spokes for this. I think I mentioned that. They're coming. They're $6 delivered, the 3 of them. I'm going to give this rim a really nice clean up. You know, there's a few little dings and stuff in it, but it is a 1982 rim. I'll respray all the hub, so I'll get this looking all pretty. I've got another Honda CT110 sprocket in the Aladdin's Cave in my shed, and being Honda, I'm hoping that the holes in the CT sprocket match the holes in the XR rim, and that'll be great. I'll just be able to bolt it straight on, no mucking around. I got my rim band today, and I got a tube. We went with a slightly wider one. It was the advice came from the actual Hunter dealer. He said that's a fairly decent sized knobby, so you got a fair bit of space to fill out inside there. You might want to go with a slightly larger one. He said it'll be sort of a pain in the ass to fit, but you've got more room for expansion, and you've got less chance of actually pinching the tube by going just a fraction bigger. He was talking in terminologies of all these different measurements and stuff. I didn't get it. Just goes to show sort of how rough and ready I am. I've got a bicycle tube in the front wheel of the XR100. So, and that's been in there 30 years. I've never had a puncture. I've changed that tyre, that front tyre, and put another tyre on it, and still put that tube back in, and it's still going. There's nothing wrong with it. So until I have unless I have a puncture or a tube blowout, that bicycle tube's staying in there. Hi everyone, it's the following day after punching the bearings out of this rim. One thing I forgot to mention and didn't sort of cover as we were getting closer to the finally removing the last bearing was that I realised that the long sleeve that runs through the centre of the rim, it had dropped far enough down where I could actually get the pin punch on the end of that sleeve, and I just would sort of like move the rim and the sleeve would move to the side a bit, and then I was able to get the punch onto the top edge of it, and I just slowly used the sleeve to punch the rest of the bearing out. It's clear why I couldn't get it right out, because it is stepped in there. You know, the bearings will only go so far. So yeah, I must have been punched up right against the slip here, and once that had happened, there was no relying on the bearing, hitting the bearings to punch the bearing out the other side. So yeah, that's sort of how I got it out. Rigged up a little thing here today, just a piece of wood and an old bolt to go through the valve stem hole, and I'm going to start to strip all the rust off this with my wire brush on the drill and give it a bit of a clean up, see how we go. And once it's all clean, yeah, I'll give it a coat in some rust reverser and let that dry. But again, you know, there might be a couple of things that I do prior to actually painting that. Like there's a couple of little burs here that I wouldn't mind just filing down, just giving the rim a general clean up. You know, the paint's always going to be the last thing that you put on, but yeah, I obviously have to clean the rim up and everything like that. The good thing with this setup too is that you might say, oh, how are you going to clean this part under here? Well, I can actually move this this bolt to the rim lock hole, which then exposes all this on this side, and you can also rotate the rim as well sideways, so it gives you more access underneath. So yeah, I'm going to get started, and I'll show you where we get to a bit later on. Done a little bit more work on the rim. As you can see here, I've gone over it with a wire wheel on the drill and cleaned it all up. Got it all looking, you know, as good as it's going to look, but it's okay. It's all good. All the rust is gone. What else? Oh, I cleaned up all the brake drum lining inside there, so there's no little bumps and bits of rust and stuff in there for when I put the new set of shoes in. One of the sets of shoes I bought to try and set up that other wheel that's currently on the bike, the 15-inch wheel. This was a set that I bought. They fit perfect. So I've got myself a new set of brake shoes, which haven't gone to waste after all. This is the Yamaha brake hub. Now I've just recently fitted the shoes onto this prior to me starting to film again, and I put them in here, and this looks loose on there now. When the shoes actually go in, this locates perfectly. It's perfect around there, and it's the axle that runs off the bearing, not actually off the hub. So it all works. I spun the wheel, I pulled the brake cam arm, and it stopped. So that's all good. So what I'm intending to do now is I've got a big wide 48mm masking tape there. I'm just going to tape up around the spokes. I'm going to respray all of this Again, it'll be like the other one. I'm not particularly fussed if I get a little bit on the spokes there that overlap the hub. And I'm going to do this side as well. I've given this a really good clean with a wire wheel on the drill. The spokes have come up pretty damn good compared to what they were. So what I'm going to do is, once all the black paint is dry, I'm also going to put the black paint on here because that's that Dulux metal shield. So I'm going to metal shield the entire rim inside there. Once I've done everything black and then given everything a little bit of a clean up when I need to, then I'm going to hit the whole wheel in that clear acrylic that I've put onto the back wheel of my Hunter and the back wheel of that 15-inch wheel, and just clear it. Yeah. So I was mucking around with some sprockets too. Turns out that the sprocket that came off these 18-inch rims fits perfect onto that XR wheel, even though they're a Yamaha wheel. This goes on perfect. It's a 40, to count them and write it down, it's a 42 tooth. I had a brand new sprocket for a Honda CT110, which is the same sprocket that's on that 15-inch wheel after I did the conversion. The holes here were 8mm holes. Strange, well, I wouldn't say it's strange, but yeah, they were 8mm holes, I think. And the holes in this sprocket that come off the Yamaha and the holes in the other sprocket, which is down there, were 11mm. So I got an 11mm drill, and I did line these up, and they look pretty good. The holes look pretty damn good, like it was so close. So what I did is I put that in the pedestal drill and brought the drill bit down, made it find its own center, drilled 11mm, went to put it on the rim, doesn't fit. It's like the holes aren't lined up. So I'm thinking, okay, lay it over the top and sort of lined it up the best I could. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, maybe the original holes in this were a little bit, maybe just a fraction different. They should be the same because they're Japanese. They're all metric design. So I thought, okay, well, there's not much I can do with that sprocket after I've drilled it with an 11mm drill bit and it doesn't fit. Let's take it up to a 12mm. So I took it up to 12mm, which it is now, and it still doesn't fit. And when I line it up and I really look closely, it's just like it's a bee's dick. There's a bee's dick in it. So unfortunately, this brand new 45 tooth sprocket, which is perfectly suited for that Honda CT110 engine, I can't use it unless I elongate these holes a little bit, which I can always do. But I've got this 42 tooth sprocket here, which fits nicely. It's going to give me, what's that going to give me? That's going to give me a bit quicker takeoff, I think. I think if you go smaller on the back, it's going to go a little bit quicker off the line. So I've already tried that. I've taken the nuts off, tried it. It fits perfectly. So regardless, I've ended up with a sprocket a sprocket that fits and a sprocket that I can modify. And it's not much. It's a bee's dick. So yeah, I just really thought it was going to work, but it didn't quite work. Another thing that I've been doing since I stopped the camera before is I've been cleaning up a few bits and pieces. Now there's a whole array of stuff in there. There's some bearings in there, and there's some chain adjusters and bolts and everything. They're soaking in vinegar. The bearings that are in there, I did actually soak them in petrol, and I cleaned them out with a toothbrush and everything and got them looking really schmick. Now I've got a couple a couple more bearings in here that I'm soaking at the moment. One had a metal shield on it, but with me trying to bash those bearings down yesterday, what it did is it bent the metal shield, and the metal shield was pushing up against the cage on the bearing. So it's not like you can knock the metal shield out, but I know how to get them out because I've worked in the bearing industry for 8 years. So I'll pop the metal shield out. They're always harder than the rubber shields, but I got the metal shield out, and I'm just going to keep it as an open type bearing. So I'm lucky I've got one metal shield bearing left, which will work as the outside bearing for the sprocket side, because that is exposed. So yeah, I've got one sealed. I could go and buy 3 new bearings with rubber seals in them, pre-packed with grease and everything like that, but this bike's getting out of control with what I'm spending on it. It's just, I could have bought a late model bike, but I'm so involved in it now that I've got to keep going with it. You know, there's no turning back, because otherwise I end up with a bike that's 95% finished, that's cost me $1 squillion, and it's going to sit in the garden shed for the next 20 years and rust away, and all the money I spent on it's going to mean nothing. Or I spend that little bit extra, like I've done with this 14-inch rim, to try and sustain the life of the bike. And really, it cost me $30. As I said, it cost me $30 for the rim. It cost me $25 for the rim band and the tube. I've ended up scoring a sprocket. I've ended up scoring a brake hub for it. So, you know, and I've ended up with a whole heap of spare parts. I've got spare axles and brake adjusters and all sorts of stuff. I would have loved to have kept that sprocket, but all the teeth are bent on it. That was off the 80 rim. But you know, you buy 3 rims for $30 that are nearly 40 years old. You're not going to be able to salvage everything. So I'm trying to make do with what I've got. Yeah, I'm pretty cluey when it comes to bearings. As I said, I worked in the bearing and oil seal industry for 8 years, so I know what's good and I know how to wash them out and pre-pack them. I know how to grade them for, you know, whether they're going to fail or not. So, and I'm pretty confident I've got enough bearings out of all the ones I've pulled out of the wheels to salvage 3. So, and the inner bearings don't really matter. They don't have to be shielded. It's just that one outer bearing that needs to be shielded. So, yeah. So we'll use what we can. I'm going to spray that brake hub as well. So what I did is I took the cam pin out and I took the cam pin arm off. This will definitely go back in. I need to replace the O-ring, which I have an entire box full of. Again, coming from the bearing industry, we sold O-rings and I got a huge stash of them. It's actually a kit of O-rings. So with this cam arm, what I'm thinking of doing is using the one that's on the 15-inch rim currently, simply because it's brand new. So I'll swap those cam arms out, provided the pin's the same size. So that's the only thing I'm not sure of at the moment. I haven't measured it. I've been out here in the garage and not inside. So so all that's taken care of. As I said earlier, I worked on this. I've put a little bit of penetrating oil on here and just run the nut up and down a few times, and I can do that with my hand now. You know, it's nice and loose. Okay, it's a little bit grotty, but it'll hold the tyre in place. As I said, this bike's not a race bike. It's not going off jumps and things like that. It's going to be a flat track bike, just a trail bike for my sister, so there's no good replacing this one, even though it looks a little bit old. I'll use now what I've got, what I've salvaged, so all good. And that's the spacer. That's the spacer tube that was supposed to push that bearing out, and did to a point. So that's got to go back in. One guy that was showing you how to do it on YouTube, the guy I was referencing, said it's a common occurrence that people forget to put the tube back in once they knock the bearings in. So I'm not going to do that. I hope I don't do it. So yeah, I got a beer there, or cider. So I'm going to smash that down now. And then I'm going to start setting up to do all my my painting. So I'm going to do the sprocket in silver. I've got some silver left over from when I did the Hunter rear fender. So that will really make that pop against the black. It'll really look good. And if you have a look at that that CT sprocket, this isn't painted, this is just factory, but this is a 30-year-old sprocket that's been sitting in my garden shed in my Aladdin's cave, and that's silver. So yeah, I'll paint that up, get it looking nice like a brand new one. Very happy with this. Like, there's a tiny little bit of wear on it, a tiny little bit of wear, and I think the teeth are just starting to pull to the right a little bit. It's going to look a lot worse in the footage because of the fisheye lens, but I'll simply reverse it. Now I've run it inside my chain there, make sure that all the spacing of the teeth and the links are good, and they're all good, so that's a winner too. I don't need to go and replace the chain. Okay, got everything painted. Didn't take me very long to get it masked up and painted, but still very tacky. As you know, that Dulux metal shield takes about a day to dry. So I've done the hub, I've done all inside the rim, right around. I've done the back side of the hub. Hope that's not too dark for you to see that. I've done the plate, and I just realised I've missed here. I've got to do here because that might be seen through the wheel. So I'll do that in a second. And I've painted the sprocket. Got maybe like one or two little tiny little runs there, but by the time I put the locking tabs on there, so the nuts don't come undone, you won't even see that. I don't even know whether that's going to be the face side or the back side, but yeah, it's going to look nice. So another job done, guys. Just got to wait for that to dry now, and then we can start fitting up all the actually I can't, I've got to wait for the spokes to turn up. I've got 3 spokes turning up sometime early next week, so I'll have to fit the spokes first, and once they're fitted, then I can put the rim band on, the tube and the tyre. So the next thing I might do, just to amuse myself, is I might clean this tyre up a bit, give it a little wash, and then get some tyre shine out, and probably I don't know if that's a wise thing to do before actually refitting it, but you know, there's some stuff on the tyre that I want to address anyway. It's a fairly decent tyre actually. It's got enough tread on it. I don't even know what brand it is. I think it's Chengshin. I think it's a Chengshin. Let's have a look. What are we looking at? Oh, definitely 3x14 nylon. It's 4-ply. Yeah, there we go. Chengshin. So made in Taiwan. I know they're good tyres. I've always used Chengshin on most of my bikes. Got to give that a bit of a blowout in there. It's don't know if you can see it. Looks like there's been water or something sitting in the bottom of it, so I'll get that cleaned up too. And yeah, all looking good. Can't wait to get back on this old girl and take it for a spin now. So she's all looking pretty, but it's winter here in Melbourne now, so she may just have to sit here for a couple of months. We'll just have to start her up and keep that battery charged, keep some fuel running through the engine. And as I said, with the Atomic, I should have the speedo sensor Monday or Tuesday, and that'll get the all the speedo working on that bike. I hate having things that don't work. If it came out on the bike and it's meant to work, it's got to work. So alright, I'll leave it here for now. I don't have any more work to do on the bikes out here. There may be something inside, but if there is, I'll continue filming later.